professional software developer with a background in data science. So today I'm excited to work on this take-home assignment from WaterLily. So I'll just read the question description once and then we can dive right in. So the overview is, for this exercise, you will create a survey application where users are presented with questions and can submit the responses. This assignment should take 2 to 3 hours to complete and is intended to simulate a water lily full stack development scenario. You are required to work on this project alone, but you are free to use any resources which you use in regular coding work. Then the project context is, the application you'll build is a simplified version of your user intake form system. So an essential element of WaterLily product is collecting the demographic, health and financial information used in a machine learning model to predict a person's long-term care needs and cost. And the next is video documentation, which I'm doing. You must record your entire work process. Think out loud as much as possible while you work, explaining decision trade-offs and reasoning. For example, if you prioritize front end over back end or vice versa. At the end of your recording, briefly summarize what you have done with more time if you do not provide a full recording. Okay. So the next is survey app requirements. So the front end is a survey interface where the survey form with question title, question description, input fields, submit button to complete the survey. Okay. And backend is implement any necessary backend functionality like API, endpoint, database, everything. And potential improvements: if you have extra time, consider enhancing this application with the features you think might be the most impactful and explain why. The following list are a few suggestions. You are free to implement this or your own improvements. Please provide a rationale for your choice. One is user authentication, enhanced survey UX, single question display format, navigation between questions, progress indicator, form validation, responsive design and UI improvements. So if I do get time, I will try to work on the single question format, next, previous, and the progress indicator, because that is little easy to implement in the given time format. And when choosing additional features, explain why you focused on them over others. We are interested in ability to work. Okay. And technical specifications is, we ask that you use the following stack. Front end is TypeScript, React and Tailwind. Backend is Node.js, and database is SQL based relational database. You can also use welcome to use additional frameworks or libraries as needed. If you choose a different tech stack, please provide a rationale. We are intentionally leaving some aspects open-ended. Your approach to implement features choosing just as important, and this is how I would submit the code. Okay. So everything is pretty straightforward. So before diving into the code, I want to outline my approach. So my goal is to create a minimum viable product survey app that can meet the given requirements, which is front end is a survey form and back end API for storing the responses, and post review submission page where I will show all the answers. So I'll focus on simplicity and functionality first, and if time permits, I will also add enhancements like progress indicator and single question display format. So I will be for this project, I'm thinking I'll be using React Tailwind, and instead of TypeScript, which is a little hard to set up, I'm thinking of using JavaScript for the time being. For backend, I can use Node.js, and for database, we have two SQL based options like SQLite, or we can use Postgres. So I'm thinking I can use SQLite for the backend for this project. So I'm using React with TypeScript because it provides strong type. I'm using React with JavaScript right now, and for back I'm using Tailwind CSS2 because it allows rapid UI development with utility first classes. For the backend, I might be using Node.js with Express because it's lightweight and efficient for building APIs. And SQLite is also a great choice for this project because it is easy to set up, unlike other databases, and it does not require a separate server. So to start the project, I will be starting by setting up the project structure, initializing the backend, and creating a React app for the front end. Okay, So let's start and dive into the code. So let's do this. Let's create a folder somewhere. Let's go here. We can create a new folder. So let's name it WaterLily Survey App. Okay. Let's open this. Okay. And okay. So in this project we will have two folders, one for the back end and one for the front end. So let's create two folders, front end and back end. Okay, so we have two folders here. So let's set up the back end first. So let's set up back end. And okay, so let's initialize it. So npm init, so it will init, and after install a package dependency in JSON file, press C, package name backend. Okay, version, description, index. So okay, is this okay? Let's press Y, and yeah, we are good. For backend we will also need Express server, SQLite and everything. So let's install that. So npm install Express. We need course, we need body parser to parse, and we need SQLite 3. So we'll install all these packages. Okay, I think we are good for now. Let's go to front end, cd front end, and we need to set up the React app here. So let's do npx create. Let's see the syntax for that. So create React app command. Okay, so npx create React app. So okay, so let's do this. Npx create React app. Okay, so we need to give front end. Okay, so it is creating a front end into a front end. So let's do this. Let's let it do its task, and once it is done we can move it outside. Yes, let's refresh it. Okay, it's not working, so let's delete this and create a new one. So instead of creating it in the front end, let's create it in the home folder. Okay, since this is working, let's see how, since we're using Tailwind, let's see how we can install it. React, Tailwind CSS with React. Okay, so we are doing this. Okay, let's start. Okay, so that is done. We have front end, we have back end for the back end code. Okay, let's install Tailwind CSS. So let's install that. Okay, so that is done. Then we have to initialize it, and then let's edit this. Let's close this. Is it in the tailwind config? Okay. Okay, so we have that. Okay, we have to add this in the index.css. So let's add the. Oh, okay, so let's paste that here, and okay, we messed up something, so we just need to replace this and then paste it here, and we are good. Okay, so let's start with the front end and see if we are successfully able to set up the tailwind css. Okay, we have started it. Something is already running. Oh, okay, let's do this. No, let's try again. So we are already in the startup. Okay, now it's working. So our front end is running on port 3000, and yeah, so we are able to run this. So that means our tailwind is installed successfully here. We can also change it in the app.js to see the changes. So instead of learn React, let's say learn WaterLily and save it, and let's run it again. Yeah, so we can see WaterLily, so it's working. So TypeScript is tailwind css is set up here. Okay, we are good to go, and we can have a separate terminal for running the backend code here. Okay, so we are done with that. Okay, and also we need to install SQLite. I think let's do it later. So let's go to the backend, and okay, so we need to create a new backend server. So since we are using SQLite, so let's create a file first for server.js. This will be our entry point into the backend, and let's also create a folder db for all the code here. Okay, so we will use it to write the entry point for this code. Okay, so let's set up the database now. So let's create a file called database.js, and we also need to initialize with question, so let's name it init.js. Okay, so let's go to database first and set up. So we have to set up the SQLite server, so SQLite 3. Okay, and we also need to initialize path. Okay, and to store our responses, let's create a file survey.db to create the table there. Okay, so okay, this is done, and let's go to here, and constant db path, which will be using the survey.db file. So let's rename it to survey.db, then constant db equals to db, okay, db path. So we are creating a new database now here. So okay, so we are done with that, and let's create the tables now. So okay, so constant initialize, let's name it initialize database. Okay, and okay, so as you can see, it is helping me with autocomplete. So let's see what it is creating. So first we need to create a table if not exists, which is named as surveys, and it has a primary key id, and we can just have a timestamp for now, and then we can create two tables, maybe one for the questions and one for the responses. Okay, so let's go with this. Okay, so create table if not exists, so the table name would be surveys, and the id is primary key. So let's just name have id and created at, okay, which is the current timestamp. And the next is let's create a question table here. Let's comment it, questions table. Okay, so similarly it also has primary key, we have survey id. I don't think so we need survey id. So as mentioned there, we just need a title. Let's see that again. So as mentioned here, we need a title, a description, and we need an input field for the user type. And okay, so let's have, we already have the id. Let's have title, which is also text. When we have description, which is also text. So okay, so description, let's keep it, remove the not null because this might be null. And let's have a type. Okay, let's remove this. We can have a type which is default is text, so let's remove the not null, and let's text, and let's say default is text, and we can have a number, order number, like the number of the way in which we want to show the question. So we can have order number, it will show the order of the questions, which is integer, and it should be not null because we need that. Okay, so I think that's all for the question table. Okay, so we also need to create a responses table to store all the answers which the user enters. So let's add responses table. Okay, so let's name it as responsive, which already done. We need a id, we need a survey id which is integer, which is required, so not null. Question id which is integer, and we need that, so not null. So response text, so let's name it as answer text and not null. Okay, now so survey id is a foreign key here, which is foreign key of surveys table, and question id is also a foreign key here. So foreign key survey id, and it is referencing surveys table with id, so it is this. And foreign key question id is also a foreign key for questions table, which is id. Okay, so once we are done with that, so let's do this. So So once we are done with that, console.log, and let's print the message successfully. We are done with that. And after this, let's export this module.exports and db and initialize database. So we're exporting the database and this. Okay, so I think we're good with this. Let's go to init.js. So we are using init.js to pre-fill the questions which we are going to show. So let's import the database from so it is inside the database.js. So let's import it from database.js. Okay, so let's name yeah, we can name it as seed questions because we are going to seed it. So seed questions, and okay, let's see how we can do that. So db dot get, we will say select count star as count from questions. So we are getting the questions from the, we are getting the count of the questions from all the questions. So there can be two options, either we will get an error or either we'll get the questions. So if we get the error, which means that we don't have questions right now, so we need to add the questions. Okay, let's remove this. Okay, so if row count is equals to 0, which means we don't have any rows written, so we can say that let's seeding initial questions, and we can return, or let's, if row count equals to 0, then we have to add all the questions here on that. So we can have a constant. So let's have the question full name. So we can add, please enter your full name as the description. The type is text because the input type is text, and we can order number 1 because this is the first question. Then we can say the second question as age. Then we can say how old are you, and the type would be number because it is not a text, and the order number is 2. Then we can say the third question as email ID, maybe let's say email ID, email address, and let's please enter your email address, and the type of the input box would be email, and let's name it as third. Let's also take phone number as well. So let's take this and copy it here, and instead of feedback we can say number, phone number, and we can say please enter your phone number. The type is telephone. Let's 1 2 3. Okay, so we need to remove this, and 4. Then satisfaction rating, how satisfied are you? Okay, and let's do this, let's remove this, and maybe we can say additional comments. So any feedback maybe, so we can say please provide any additional feedback, and it should be text area because it is greater than one line maybe, because a user might enter a long feedback. Okay, so this is our questions. So if row count is 0, then we need to seed all these questions. So let's go here. Outside of these questions, let's prepare this, insert into questions. So we have title, description, type, and order number. Okay, and then for questions for each question, we will run question dot title, question dot description, question dot type, and order number. Then we'll finalize this, and once it is done, we can say that the initial questions are seeded successfully. And it might be possible that it is not seeded, so in that case we can also have error. Oh, so okay, so we are done with this. Okay, so if it is, let's see, this is for if, so this is for if we are loading, and if we are not loading, then we can just say the questions already seeded, so we can skip this. And okay, so we are done with the else part. Let's close this. Okay, and okay, so we close this seed questions, and let's export this. So module.exports, and we are exporting the seed questions. Okay, so we just have seed questions, so let's keep it this way. Okay, so we are done with all the questions. We already set up the table for which we needed for this assignment. Okay, so the next thing is we have the table, we have the initial questions. Now the next thing is setting up the routes which we need for the APIs. So let's create a new folder maybe for routes, and inside routes we can create a new file for the APIs. So let's name it as api.json. Okay, so let's import express. Okay, and let's also import the database which we need. So db is equal to database. Okay, and let's set up the router here. Okay, so we need to have few APIs, so let's name it. So the first API which we need is we need to get all the questions whenever we load the front end. So let's say get all questions. Okay, so let's load the suggestion, and we can see if this is what we need. So we are getting router.get, and the API the URL is /questions, so we will get request and response. So we will do db.all, and we want to get all the questions, and we need to order it by the order number which we have already initialized in this order number 3 4 5 6. We have 6 questions for now, so we're initializing by order number. And if we are facing an error, we can say error fetching questions, and we can return the result as internal server error, or maybe we can say failed to fetch questions, and we can return. If we got the questions, then we can just return all the rows, and that should be it. Okay, so the next is we need, after filling all the questions, we need to submit the survey response. So let's say submit a survey response. Okay, let's say this, and let's see if we need to change it. Okay, so submit response is bit tricky, so let's name it as submit. instead of response, let's rename it as submit. And so in the request we have all the answers for all the questions, so let's name it as answer. Let's rename it as answers. So it might be possible that we did not receive the answer, so let's do that. Okay, so if not answers, we did not receive any answers, or if the array is not an array, we did not get any array for answers, or answers length is 0, so the length of the array is 0, then we can return status 400 or invalid request format, answers format. Let's rename it as request. Okay, so this is the case when we did not got the answers. So let's now work with the case when we did got the answers. So db dot serialize. Okay, let's see how do we do this. Okay, okay, so let's remove this. Okay, so let's run it as a transaction. Either it should be all or either it should be none. So we can start a transaction here. So we can say db.run begin transaction okay, and we need to create a new entry in the response table. So let's create a new survey entry. Okay, so let's run a query db.run, and we can say insert into our table name is surveys, and default values. If we have a function error, okay, so if we get an error, we can say error inserting, or maybe creating the survey, and we can roll back. So if we are facing any error, we can just say fail to submit the response, and if not, then we can create okay, so we got the ID, and we need to insert in the responses table. So we have survey ID, question ID, and the answer which we got from the questions. And now we need to insert in the answers. So insert all answers. Okay, let's create an variable has error, which is false for now. Then answers for each answer we will run smtv stm for run survey id answer dot question id. We have the question id here, and we also have answer dot value. We don't need this. Answer dot value error. If error or we can also have if not has error. If has error is not set, we will set it, so has error is true, and we can say that error inserting the response. Okay, so this is done. Okay, we also did finalize, and if has error, then we will roll back. Otherwise we'll commit the transaction. Okay, so let's do commit error. So if we face any error in committing, then we can say error committing the transaction, we are failed to survey submit the response, and otherwise we can just say that survey is submitted successfully. Okay, so this looks good. Okay, so we are out of this now. Okay, let's see if we closed all the parentheses completely. Let's go through this one more time. So storing the responses, we are running it as a transaction, so either it should be submitted all the responses or none of them. So we will insert it, default values, and if we have any error we can just say the error creating the surveys, and we'll roll back. Otherwise we will create an survey id, and we need to insert all this into the responses table. So we'll create a variable has error to see if we have any error. So for each answers we will run this and we will add it. If we have any error we can just console the error, and we can, if we have any error we can just roll back. If we don't have error, then at the end of all this we can just commit saying that we have submitted the responses successfully. So let's see, we have closed this, we have closed this, we need to close this as well. So let's this is closed, this is for this closed, and let's close this one. Okay, I think we are having some error, so let's see. db.serialize, something is wrong, we are missing something, so let's go it line by line. So we have answers, if not answers then we can return, and we have db.serialize, quick fix, okay, accept. Okay, I think we fixed this, and okay, so I think we are done with that. So the next one is we were able to store the survey. Okay, so if we want to get some surveys by id, so we can just add a new get survey results by id, and we can say let's see, so we have results and we have id, so we'll get the survey id from request.id. We can just say responses, this does not look good, so let's rewrite it. Okay, so let's write it as select. We have to join two table. Our questions are in question table and responses are in response in table. So let's say q dot title, so we have title. Okay, let's see, so we have q dot title, q dot description, and we have r dot answer, which is in responses table, and we have to join questions and responses. On the common id is question id, so on question id and r dot question id, where survey dot id equals to, we don't have the id yet, we'll given id, and order by will show it by the order id. So this is the survey id which will fill here, we are not able to get that, we can just say error fetching the survey results, and we can say we have failed to fetch the survey results. Okay. Okay, so this we are using to get all the to get the survey by ID. Okay, I think this looks good. Okay, so let's export this. So how do we export it? Let's write module that exports router. Okay, so we set up the database, we set up the question table, and we also set up the APIs which we needed for this one. Okay, so let's write the initialize the server, which is the entry point for this file. Okay, so this is the main file where we will start from. Okay, so let's write express, let's import express, let's import course, let's import body parser, and okay, so we have initialize database, so let's initialize it. Initialize database, which is in the database. Then we have constant in seed questions, which we have, it is inside init, so let's name it as init. Okay, so this is in the db folder, so let's say db slash it's in the database, and let's get the import for this db slash init questions. Okay, and let's also import the routes, so API routes, it is in the, okay, let's see the import for this, so it is in the db folder. It's inside the routes, it's inside api.js. Okay, so let's start the server express, and I'm thinking for this backend server we can run it on 5001. Let's run it on 5001, or we can also run it on 5000, and front end is running on 3000 server. Okay, so let's set up the middleware, which is course, and then let's initialize the database, so we can just call this initialize database function here. And okay, then we need to seed the database with initial questions, so we'll call that, so we can just say seed. Then after that, so we have seeded the questions, also we need to use the routes, so we can just call the routes API, we can use the API routes. Okay, and let's initially we can just start the server, and okay, and before that let's start a test route, and we can just say welcome to the WaterLily survey. Okay, this looks good, and let's also update the scripts in the to start the server. So let's start. So our file name is, we need to write server.js, so let's rename it as server.js, and for this we can just say node event server.js. Okay, and let's save this. And I think we haven't installed any dependencies yet, so let's install that. So let's go to backend. Okay, so npm install express course body parser SQLite 3, and what else? Let me think if we are missing anything. So we have used all that. Let's install this. Okay, and let's write npm start and it will start the server.js. Okay, so database in a server is running on. Okay, so we have some error here, error SQLite error near the syntax. Okay, let's see all the files if we have missed anything. So API, okay, database, I'm not sure what this error is. Okay, let's see if it is running. Okay, so it is not running. Okay, so let's see. Undefined 0 SQLite error near error number 1 code SQLite error. Give me a moment and I'll be back. So I quickly have to use the restroom, so I'll be back. Okay, so I'm back. Sorry for that. Okay, let's see what the error is. So server is running, but we have some error. So database initialized successfully. Let's see that. In it. So first we have initialized this. So we were able to run this, and console is saying database initialized successfully, so this is good. So let's see server.js. So we were able to run this. So the next is seed with questions. So we are not having any questions here, so something is wrong with the questions file. Let's go here and let's see. So we have database, so we are importing the database and we are initializing that. Okay, and so I think we did not even get to this part yet, otherwise we would have some error here. So let's search this error. Okay, let's go here and let's ask, can you explain the below error? it is thinking. Okay, so it is a SQL syntax issue in the SQLite query. Okay, so we're missing this. There is an issue with the parentheses in a query, such as missing column name or value. Okay. Okay, so let's see if we are missing any bracket somewhere. So it is saying near this. So let's go through the query one by one. So select count from questions, and okay, so we can have an empty array, and we can say if error, we can return the error if row count is 0. Then we can see this, then we have questions, and we are filling the questions with all the questions. Then we are using statement, and we are inserting into that. Okay, and then questions for each questions, and for each questions we are running this. Question dot title, description, question dot type, question dot order number, and after this we'll finalize and we'll say console.log initial question successfully, and then we are closing this. Then we have console.log, and this, and after this we are closing everything. Okay, so I'm not sure what's wrong, so let's ask ChatGPT to see. So instead of ChatGPT, let's take Cloud. So Cloud is better suited for coding. Let's give him the code. The below error, we can also paste the error here. Pasting the error. Let's try now. So I was not able to find anything. Let's see if ChatGPT can. I found the issue causing a sequence. The question is in a database setup for the table structure. The error is happening because question table might not exist or have a different structure from what. So from your code, you're using insert into questions, title, description, type, order, but the questions table might not be defined correctly in your database. Okay, so we did initialize the questions table. Let's see. Okay. All the tables. Here is my code. Okay. So we have ID, title, description, type, and order number. Okay. There is an extra comma at the end of column definitions for the question table. Okay. Okay, let's see if we can fix that. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so let's save this and try again. Okay, we saved everything. Okay, so database, let's say this. So in our server, so we have initialized the database. It is in database initialized successfully. So server is running on the host. We have seeded the initial questions and question seeded successfully. Let's see. I'm not sure why we are having this error. Uh, 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 Maybe something with the port. Let's try port 5001 and okay, let's see. Okay, something is wrong with that server. So we have successfully created the backend server and it is saying welcome to the WaterLily survey. Okay, so it's running. So far we have created a database. We have created 3 tables in here: surveys, questions and responses. So survey is just ID and created it. Questions have the questions and responses has the ID, survey ID for which we are creating the survey, the question ID and the answer for each question. And we have the API. So we have API to get all the questions initially, and then we have API for submitting a survey response, and then we have API for get survey results by ID, and we have server which is the starting point for this file. So it will start the server, initialize the database, initialize all the questions and the routes, and at the home page we can just say welcome to the WaterLily survey. Okay, so everything looks good. So we are done with the backend part. Okay, let's focus on the front end part. Okay, so we have let's see. So we have index.js, which is the starting. Let's remove this, which is the starting point for this. And so we don't need to change this. The next is app.js. So let's go to app.js. Okay, so done with that. For app.js, so we need to show here our survey form. So let's create a folder to create the form. So new folder, let's name it as components. Okay, so we will have the survey form in this file. So let's name it as new file. Let's name it as survey form dot jsx. Then okay, so what we need to do is we need to show the form. The user will fill the form, and at the end we need to show all the responses. So let's create a new file to show the responses. So let's say survey responses. Okay, survey form, survey responses. Okay, so we created the survey form, and let's create survey responses. Yes. Oh, let's rename. We forgot to add the extension. So okay, so RNFPS. Okay, so we created the responses and the survey form. So let's go to app.js and let's say okay, let's remove this div. Okay, so we don't need this app.css here. We don't need the logo as well. Let's import React from React. Also let's import uh, we need to import the router. So let's say browser router as router and route, so we need this to show the form. And let's import the pages, so import, and the form is survey form from component survey form. And we also need to import the responses, so survey responses from import responses. Okay, uh let's initialize the router here. Okay, so inside the router, let's to show that, let's have a div with class name, let's say minimum height of screen, and let's say background gray, and padding top bottom. Okay, let's give it 10. Padding on horizontal is 10. Okay, that should work. And let's close this div. Okay, and let's wrap it inside the div. And for routes, for the initial route would be survey form, which is the home page. And after that, so let's name it as results. So we will have an id, so let's say id, and we can say element is survey responses. Okay, that looks good. And let's save this. Okay, so we have index.js, we don't need that. Let's save this. Okay, so let's start a different server here. Okay, so let's remove this, we don't need this. Oh, we might need this. Okay, let's remove this. So we don't have React Router DOM. Okay, so we don't need React Native since this is our React app. Let's do this. Okay, okay, so we have div, div text survey form. Okay, let's remove this, and we are good. So sorry, I imported the React Native components here. So let's say survey results, and we are good. Okay, let's save this. Let's start a new server here. Let's say cd front end, and let's say npm start. Okay, it is starting. Okay, so we can't resolve this. Okay, so we have to in the server responses. Let's fix that. We don't need this, so that is good. And the other error is, let's fix that. So cd front end, and we need to import the React router down. Okay, so npm I React router DOM. Okay, so that is done. Let's see. React Native. We have solved this. For default, okay, we have solved this. We have solved this. Let's say index.js. Okay, so we still have this error. So let's see how we can fix this. When you're using the syntax of one version of React but have a different version installed, if you're using React now use let's say this. So we are using this. Let's see what we are using. Browser router as router routes, and so this is our old version. Let's do this. Let's see if it fixes our problem. Send route. Let's see if that fixes that. Okay, let's install a different version. So let's see. Okay, we have fixed this. Let's see. Route input is route, what is not found in. Okay, let's see the error here. Okay, so the error you're seeing are related to React Router DOM imports. This typically happens when using syntax from one version of React Router DOM, but you have a different version installed. So how to fix? So check your version. So import browser router routes and route. For router React Router v6 we have to install this. If I check your import in app.js, it looks like I'm inputting router, but the export is actually browser router, or you might be using syntax. Okay, so we are using this. So let's say browser router, we have routes, and we can start maybe. Let's close this and we can start again. Okay, let's hope we don't have any error. So stylesheet.create is not a function, so let's remove that. Okay, so successfully we have loaded the survey form page here. Okay, that looks good. Let's work on the survey form. So let's go to the survey form here. Okay, so we would also need the hooks. So let's say use state and use effect. Okay, and also we need to import Axios to create the URL from Axios, then import Axios from Axios. Something is wrong with this, so import Axios from Axios. Okay, so let's work here. Okay, so let's have a div class name. Let's have the maximum width of let's say 2xl, maximum auto, and padding 6. Okay. Okay. So how do we name it? So let's have an h1, and our class name is okay, so we have a h1. Let's say it is 3xl, font bold, and let's say our text is center. Let's say WaterLily survey form, maybe WaterLily survey form. Okay, so let's remove this. We don't need this yet. Okay. So we need to load the questions first. Okay, so let's set up all that first. So constant, we have questions, set questions, and we have questions, set questions, then we have answers. So let's say it as answers and set answers. Okay, so and we also have responsors, so that is a completely new term. Let's also say loading. To load the page, we can also have error, and let's also set submitted once we are done with the submission. Okay, and also let's use navigate. Use navigate. Okay, so whenever we are loading the screen, so we need to fetch the questions. So what we can do is response xus.get API URL. So we can also set an API URL here at the top, which we can use. Let's say API URL. So okay, so we can just say it as API, since our server is running on 5001, not 5000. So instead of entering the entire API, we can just say API URL, and we will close this, and we'll have questions here. Let's also change this to this. Okay. Something looks wrong with this. So we are doing API URL, so we're not getting the URL here. Why? Okay, we are missing this. Okay, so we are loading the URL questions, and we are setting the questions with the response.data, and we'll set the loading to false. And if we have any, okay, we don't need to set the loading to false. And if we have any error, so set error, we can just say failed to fetch questions, please try again later. And we can also print it on console.error error fetching questions. And after this, if we are successful, we can set the loading to false. Okay, so we successfully loaded the question. Okay, that looks good. Then okay, then we need to handle the submission and everything. Let's try that later. So we got the questions here, and if we failed, then let's say if we have error, then we can just have error, then we can just have a div, let's say div, and class bgred. Okay, let's have a border, then let's say the border is red 500, and let's also set the text to red 500, let's say 700, maybe more dark, and padding 4, margin bottom 6. Okay, and instead of error, let's put it in paragraph error. Okay, so that is done. If we got the questions, let's have a form. Okay, so form on submit equals to on submit equals to, we can have a function called handle submit, and let's have a class name of bg white. Let's have the background white, shadow. Okay, sam shadow, and let's have rounded, and let's have padding 6. Then okay, let's close this. Okay, so we are inside the form. Now we need to map the questions. So we got the questions, so let's questions dot map, and for each question let's create a separate component for showing the question. So let's do this. We have a survey question, and we can pass the key is the question ID, the question is that question, and let's say value is the answer to that question ID or empty, and on answer change we can handle the answer change. We have to implement that here, and let's close this, and let's close this. Okay, so I know we don't have these functions and this component yet. Also, after all these questions, we need to have a submit button. So let's say div, let's have class name equals to let's have the margin top 8 for now, and we can add it later. Okay, so in this div we will have a button. So okay, so the type is submit, and so we have a function submitted. So let's say disabled, so it should be disabled when submitting is true. Okay, then the class name, okay, let's set this. Okay, so we need to have a dynamic. Let's set a dynamic button. So whenever we are submitting, we can have a different button, and if we have submitted, then we can have a different button. So let's do this. So we can have width full, padding y3, padding x4, we can have a rounded medium. Then let's have the text as white. Font, let's keep it a medium. Then okay, let's have a transition. Okay, so if submitting, let's say submitting, do we have submitted or submitting? We have submitted. Okay, submitted. So if submitted, then we can have a different button. So let's say if we have submitted, okay, then we can have background blue of 400, and let's say cuts are not allowed, so we will not able to submit that. Okay, if not, we can have background of 600, hover blue. When we are hover, we can make it extra dark, so 700. Then we can say focus outline none, and what can we do? Focus ring 2. Okay, it looks good. Focus blue 500, focus ring offset, this doesn't look good. Ring opacity 50, so that looks good. Okay, so we set that. Okay, let's also have a dynamic button name. So if submitting, we can say submitting, otherwise we can say we have the name as submitted. Okay, so if submitted, then we can say submitting, otherwise we can say submit. Okay, that looks good. Okay, let's implement this. So let's have a new component called survey question. Let's have a new file, survey question.jsx. Okay, and let's import that here. Import survey question from survey question. Okay, use navigate, we also need to import this. So I think use navigate is not in the React, but it is in React DOM. So let's import that. Import use navigate from React DOM. Okay, so that is set. So we solved this error. Let's handle the submit and handle answer change. Okay, so first is let's handle answer change. So we have the question ID, and for that we have the value. So we will set the answers. We have the value, so we'll set the answers. How do we set it? So we have the previous data. Okay, let's remove this. Okay, so set answers. We have the previous answers, so we will take all the previous answers, and for this question ID we will have the value. So for this question ID the value will be this. Okay, so we can change that. And the next is constant handle submit. So handle submit. Okay, so this is little tricky. Okay, let's try this. Okay, so prevent default, and we'll set submitted to true, and for now we can set the error to null. Okay, we'll try constant response. Okay, let's remove this. Okay, let's implement our own. Let's remove the. Okay, so we can have constant unanswered questions. We can just filter the question, and if the question is not answered, questions dot filter. If okay, let's see, if question, and if answer not question dot id, if we don't have any answer for that question id, or answer for that question id is empty. So these are the unanswered questions. We'll filter that questions. If we have more than, so it is more than one, then we can just set the error that please answer all the questions. So we are just using it to make all the question as required. So we can just say please answer all the questions before submitting. And okay, so we handled that. Let's handle the okay, let's see submission. So constant submission data, let's name it as submission data, and let's see. So answer is object dot enter answer. We will map it to the question id and value. Let's name it as value, and question id is, let's parse int question id. Oh my god, parse int question id, and answer is value. So let's say as value. Parse int is not defined. Parse int, is it something? Okay. Oh, it's parset int. It's parse int. Okay. Okay, so we're done that. So let's try. Okay, let's see. So constant response is we are using, so our API is submit and not response. Our route is, we have the submission data, and once we are done with that, we can just say console.log submission successful, and let's print it here in the console, and we can also navigate to the result, and we have the id response dot data dot it's survey id. Let's pass the survey id here. Okay, so we tried that, but if we are not successful, so we might have an error. So we can set failed to submit the survey, please try again later. We can also edit in here. Let's leave this. We can also have a finally. So if everything is done, we can set the submitted to false again. Okay, this looks good. We can also have, we also have a variable loading. So if our screen is loading, then we can have this. If loading, then we can return flex justify center item center at screen, and let's have a div, and we can have animation that screen is loading. So let's have animate screen rounded full. Let's have a height of 12, width of 12, and let's have a border bottom of 2. Okay, and let's have a border. So we can have a loading screen here. So let's say set loading screen. Okay, so that is done. Transition. Okay, so we are done with the survey form. So now we have to Axios. Okay, we haven't installed Axios, so let's also install that. So cd front end, and let's import npm Axios. Okay, we are done with this index.js survey form. Okay, let's implement the survey question first. Okay, so import react from react. Okay, so in this we can have different type of question as we saw. So we can have a text, number, we can also have email, we can have text area. So okay, let's see in backend what kind of type we have. So I think it's in the init. So in each question we have described, let's keep it as number. We don't have, I think, telephone. So we have different type of text box. We have number, we have rating. I'm not sure if we have the rating type. So let's give it as number as well. For now we have text area, so we need to implement each of this. So let's close this. Okay, so import react from react. Okay, so constant survey question. So as we saw here, for the questions we are passing the question id, question value, and on answer change. So we have question on answer change and value. So we have value on answer change. Okay, okay. So let's have a return statement here. We can have okay, here. So we can have a div, and we can have a label, class name equals to block. We can have a block, we can have text large, and let's have a font medium. Then let's have margin bottom 1. Then let's have HTML4, and we can say okay, let's do this. Question id, HTML4 is equals to, okay, question id, and then we can have the question dot title, which is the title of the question. Then we can have a label is closed. Okay, so now we can have different type of input type. We don't have a single input type. So instead of pasting everything here, let's do a switch, if else, based on the input type. So let's have a paragraph here. So paragraph class name is equals to text gray 600 MB2 question description. We can paste the description, and for this instead of doing that, let's do this. Let's create a function get input field. Okay, now we need to implement this. Okay, and then we will be done with the question type. So let's say constant, our name is get input field. Okay, so it is a switch. So based on the question dot type, if it is a text, then we don't have all this. So let's say text, then we can have input type equals to text, id is the question id, and value is the value. On change, we can have on answer change, we can pass the question id and the value. And let's change the style for this. So width is full, then padding is 2. We also need a border. Let's have a border gray. Let's also rounded it. Focus, let's have a focus ring 2, and let's say focus. On focus we can have ring blue 500, and let's say focus outline none. Okay, so let's also have a placeholder here. Placeholder, enter your answer here. Okay, so we have done for text, and we can also have a text area. So the question is question id. Let's have the same. Let's have a constant styles everywhere. So on change is this, value is this. On text area we also need to define the number of rows. So let's say rows is 4, and let's also have placeholder answer here. So I have id, class name, value. Okay, the next one is number. So let's import number. Okay, so everything stays the same. We can have the value. On change, enter your answer here. Okay, this looks good. We also have email. So case email. Okay, so let's have the same here. We haven't used radio and checkbox, but let's keep it here if we need it in future. And for default, let's have same like text box. So if we haven't mentioned anything, we can just return the text box same. Okay, so this looks good. Let's see. Okay, we have the WaterLily survey form, failed to fetch questions. Okay, something is wrong with that. Let's see here. Okay, so let's see. running it here. Okay. Failed to fetch questions. Please try again later. Where is this error? Okay, let's do one thing. Let's run our server again. npm start. Okay, so something is wrong. So let's see. So let's try this endpoint. Okay, so we are not getting the questions. Okay, what's wrong with this API? Let's see. Maybe this is wrong because we already have here that thing. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, we were having double that. Okay, we have all this, we can fill it and we can submit it, but here I'm not seeing any styles applied, which I did here. So I'm guessing the Tailwind CSS is not applied. Let's see. Let's say React Tailwind install. Let's see if we did it correctly. We want to do it for React. Let's see. We created the project. Okay, this is not the one which we did previously. Okay, so this is the one. So create React tab does not support custom post CSS configuration. So we highly recommend using byte parcel next.js instead of create React tab. Okay, since we already created it, so we have created the project. Okay, so we have installed this. We have to install tailwind.config.js content. So let's say tailwind. Okay, we have this. Add the tailwind tag for each of the tailwind layers to your source.index.css. So that's the CSS. Let's have this. Okay. Okay. Let's do npm start. Okay. Let's close this. Let's try and see. Okay. Let's say cd content npm start. Did we close that? Let's see here. Let's set up the scripts. Also let's add proxy here. So we are adding the server port here. So scripts is npm script start. Okay. Also the dependency says. Hmm. Okay. Okay, let's install. Mm. Come instead. Let's install Tailwind CSS, Post CSS, Auto Prefixer. Let's install the latest Tailwind. F3. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we have to start it again. Okay, so you are still not able to add that. Let's maybe install. Let's hope it works. It's not working. Okay, let's ask ChatGPT the steps for Tailwind CSS. It's not showing the styles. Can you give me step by step guide? How to install Tailwind with React.js. Okay, let's see where we are missing it. Okay, let's do this again. So let's install this, npm install Tailwind, then let's close this. This is our file. I have tailwind.js. Let's put it in tailwind css. Okay. Okay. We have index.css. Put it that. Okay. Let's close this. Let's close this. This. Okay. And let's say npm start. Let's start the server again. Okay. Okay. I'm getting this error. So let's search this. post CSS plugin has been moved to a separate package. Okay, so let's say cd content, then install this. Also update your post config dot okay, let's start. Let's hope. Okay, let's close this. Let's start again. Okay, we are already learning here. Let's say no. Okay, let's say npm start. Let's hope it fixes it. Okay, so it's not working. Let's try the other ones. If that is not working, so let's do this. Okay, let's save this and let's try again. cd frontend and npm start. Okay. Okay, so this is not working. Okay, so let's see this. Let's close this. Okay, 3.4.7. Oh, we need to go to the front end and then see. Okay, let's see this. Okay. Yeah, multiple versions of Tailwind CSS installed. CSS 4.14, the latest is causing the problem. The error specimen mentioned that in Tailwind CSS version 4, the post CSS plugin has moved to a separate package. So let's do this. Uninstall all Tailwind related packages. Okay. Let's install again. And let's do init. And let's update Tailwind config. Okay. Post css config.js. Okay. Okay, let's clean the remodule and install again. Okay. Okay. Let's start the server again. Okay, oh yeah. Okay, so finally all the CSS has been applied. So we have the WaterLily survey form, we have the text description and everything. Okay, okay, that is done. Now we need to implement the survey responses form, which we haven't yet. Okay. Okay, so we also need state use effect. We also need axios. So say axios from axios. Let's also use params. Okay. We have the. Let's also set up the URL. So let's say constant API URL, which is 5001, where our server is running. Okay, for survey responses, we will get, let's see the form here. So for survey responses, where is that? Yeah, so we are navigating to the results and we are passing the survey ID. So we have that. Okay, so let's do this. We have the ID from use params. Survey ID, we have the ID here. Then let's set results, set results. Let's name it as results and set results. Okay. Okay, let's implement the use effect. Okay, so whenever we get the ID, we'll fetch the results. So our response will be api.results.id and we'll set it to the set results. If we face any error, we can just say failed and try again, and finally we can set the loading to false, and then we will call the fetch results. We'll call the fetch results here. Okay. Okay, that is good. If loading, then we can just have a loading screen here. Oh no. Okay, that is okay. So if loading, then we can have a div and justify center, item center, horizontal screen. Then we can have a loader class. So let's say animate spin to display the loaded. We can have rounded, it can be round. We can have height 12, width 12. Let's have a border bottom of 2, and let's also have a border blue. Let's have blue 500. Okay, so we have set this. I don't think so we have this. Okay, now so if we have an error, so let's say we have an error, then what can we do? Let's say if we have an error, so we can have a div let's close this here, div. Okay, we can have let's say max width of 2xl auto paragraph 6, and we can have, let's say, no can say no results found for this survey. We don't need to put it in red because this is not an error. And okay, let's give a different here. So background yellow, let's give it yellow, and let's give the border, we can also have border yellow, text yellow, and I don't know what role is, but we can have margin bottom of 6, and we can say no results found for this array. Additionally, we can also add a link to go back. So let's say link go back. So let's have a link, class name, go back to survey. So we can just say back to survey, and let's say inline block, text blue, we can say background blue 600. We can have the text to white, padding X is 4, padding Y is 2, rounded, let's keep it rounded, and when we hover we can just say background blue, we can make it more dark, let's say 700. Back to survey. Okay, so we are done with that. So the next is if we are not return any results. So let's say if result length is 0, then we can do max 12 auto, let's say padding 6, then we can say background yellow, border L4. Okay, that looks good. We can say no results found for this survey, and we can have similarly go back to the survey. Okay, that looks good. So we have the different error scenario which might face. Okay, so let's go to the main where we have the results. So let's go this. So we can say div, let's say class name equals to max 12 auto paragraph 6, then we can have another div, let's say our background is white, shadow MD. Okay, that looks good. Then let's close this. Okay, inside this div we can have a heading, text 3XL, font bold. Okay, text center, let's say text blue 600, and survey results. Okay, that is there. Let's remove the table, we don't need a table. Okay, then let's have a div, class name, let's say space y4. Okay, so we have to go through the result, so which we have here. So we have set the results, so we will go through it. So let's say results dot map, we have result and index, and can have a div where key is the index, class name. mm, let's change it to just border, and padding bottom 4. Okay. Padding bottom 4, we will have an title, so we can just say text large, let's say Excel large, font medium, and let's say color to gray, because we want to show that these are already submitted results. We can just say result.title, which is the question. Then let's say header 3 here. Then we will have a description, let's keep it small, so text small. We can have text gray 500 because it is lighter than the question. Let's have the margin border to 2, and let's say description. Then we can have a third, let's keep it as let's say background gray 100, padding 3, and rounded, and we have result.answer here. Okay, so we have the div. We closed it. Okay, so we have this, which is there. Okay, so we have that. So before, we can also add a link to start a new survey, so let's add that. Div class name mount 8. Okay. Instead of this, we can say take another survey, and okay, let's change this. Okay, so we have blog, we have text center, we can keep it in center. Let's say y padding is 3, x padding is 4, background we can say blue 600, let's keep it 600, text white. Then we can have rounded, we can say font medium, rounded hover blue 700, and we can have transition. You can say take another survey. Okay, we have this, we have link, div, and we have closed this and survey. Okay, this looks good. Let's try this and see. So this is a survey form. Let's fill Neha 25, let's say nukaneha@gmail.com. Let's say 5, none. So intentionally we're leaving this phone number to see if we get the error. Okay, so we got the error, please answer all questions before submitting. So let's add this and submit. So we got the error, no results found for this survey. Okay, so okay, something is wrong here. So we're getting the use params ID, so let's see. So when we are submitting the form, survey ID, so we have the survey ID which looks correct. Console.log successfully. submission successful, response.data. Let's see here. Okay, so we are loading that. Okay. Question.id. So if we had any error, we should have the error failed to submit the survey, please try again later, or error submitting survey. But we did not got that. We got no result found for this survey, which means we already tried this. Submission was successful, and then we got to results page. Response.data.survey ID. That we have printed this, but I can't see this anywhere. Let's see the console. Let's see here. We have the submission successful, we have the object message. We have the data. So we are showing response.data. Let's print this response.data.survey ID. Okay. So we have 25, 5, tick. Okay. So we have submission successful and the ID is undefined. Let's print the response instead of response.data and see. Back to the survey. Submit. Okay. So status is 200. Let's see the data. Okay, let's print some. So we have the response. Let's print response.data. Let's put it again. 45, 5. Okay, so we got the response.data. We have the message. Okay, but we don't have the let's see the URL for that. So let's see the backend routes. Let's see this. Submit. So we are using that here, submit in the survey form. So using this URL submit, it comes to today's answer is request.body, and we have not answered. Valid request format. Okay, this is there. Then if we see constant get results.id, we are selecting all. Okay, so the error is here, so we are using single quotes instead of this. Survey ID equals to this, and we're passing the survey ID. Okay, error. Let's try again. Okay, let's try this again. ID. So we are getting the ID here. Request.params. Let's see here. Okay. Constant answers, then serialized run transactions. If error, we can say error creating survey, and result survey ID equals to this dot last ID. We created the survey ID here, then survey ID, and we are passing all that. And responses, we are inserting the response ID, question ID, and answer, and let error equals to false, answers for each. Answer value error, if error and is error, then okay, and then smtp.finalize, if is error, then we can run the load rollback, return the result status, JSON, commit. If we have error, then we can just say error transaction. Okay, and if we have the result, then okay, let's pass the all that. So let's set the status to 201, and then let's pass the JSON. We can have message. Let's also pass success is true, and let's also pass the survey ID. Okay, let's save this, and let's save this, and let's start again. 25 5. Okay, something is wrong. It should give it. Let's inspect this console. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's start the backend server again, and let's start the front end again too. So cd backend and npm start. Command click. Okay, so it is running. So it has initialized, server is running. Okay, let's also run the front end again. Npm start. Okay, so we have the question here. Let's fill it again. 56 5. Okay, let's inspect. We have the survey ID here, so this time we have the survey ID. Okay, let's see where we are getting submission successful. So we are in the we are here, we have submitted the submission, we have the survey ID. So we are passing the survey ID, which is 7. We have passed the survey ID here. Let's close this, and here survey response, let's name it as survey ID, and instead of ID let's pass survey ID here. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, let's do this. 45 234. Okay, so we got the survey ID now, but now what is the problem here? No results found for this survey. Getting this error because our results length is 0. Let's also print the result. Let's print this 45. It's not getting 1. Okay, so we're getting this, but our survey result is empty. Okay, so something is wrong with this API URL results. Let's see if that is the right one. Submit, have results slash ID here. Okay, let's see what we can do here. Result slash ID, and in the API let's see again the result slash ID here. Okay, so we have the constant survey ID equals to params.id, then db.all, select q.title, q.description, q.type, r.answer from questions q, join responses r on q.id equals to r.question id, which is true, where r.survey id equals to this, which we are passing here, order by q.order number, and then we are passing survey id here, error and rows. If error, console.error, fetching error, result of status fun. Otherwise you can also say results from server rows, and we can close it. Okay, let's try this again. 45 by this. Okay, so this is our submission ID, which is 10. Survey results, let's see here, inspect, let's see the what was the URL, results less than or equals to 0. Okay, let's see, let's ask ChatGPT. not able to fetch the results. After submitting into the database, can you tell me what's wrong with this API? Let's pass this and see. Okay, I don't see any immediate syntax error in SQL query or the route handling the group A. Make sure database connection properly established. Check if the DB object is initialized. The code has a console. Seeing the output in a server. Check if the survey ID parameter matches in actual surveys in database. Verify. Check if the survey ID parameter. Calling the API correctly from the front end. Check the browser's network tab. Okay, let's try this and see. So you're getting the survey ID. Okay, let's try it again. 45, 23. Expect as well. Okay, the submission is successful. We have the success ID, but survey results. These are all the APIs for this code. Check if I'm missing something or if there is any error. Let's see this. We have an issue in the submit endpoint. Okay, issue in the submit endpoint. Answers for each query. You're using a bitwise AND instead of logical AND. Okay. Okay, let's check that. Where is that error? Let me see again. Answers for each. Okay, let's see. Answers for each. Okay, let's save this. And okay, let's do this. And now where is that answers.h? Okay, let's save this and let's try again. Back to survey. Let's set this 24, satisfaction rating 3. Okay, so this time I have did all of this. Okay, and final commutative. Okay, let's try this version and see if it works. pasted this. Okay, let's start again fresh. So let's say cd backend. Let's save this file and npm start. Okay, and also let's start the front end and npm start. Okay, so we're running this and back to survey. Let's add this and let's add the full file. Okay, now we are having the error, failed to submit survey, please again later. Okay, let's see the API, what it is doing. Answer equal to 0, invalid request format, begin transaction, insert into survey. Where is the survey form? Okay. Also let's set the error. Okay. Failed to submit survey. Okay, this is the error. Let's see. Okay. Let's keep the earlier one and we have this. Okay, let's try again. 34 3 1 2 3. We're having failed to submit survey. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, let's save this and let's try again. We have 24 34 3. Why are we getting this error? Let's save this and let's again see the database and everything. It looks good. Let's save this as well. Let's save this API. We have questions is loading perfectly, so don't have to do anything. DB server not spell checked. This is our survey.db. Let's see the survey form. Let's save it. Let's save it and let's see the responses and let's save it. Okay, let's see. is that on answer change. So we have handle answer change here, and on change is handle answer change. What is the name? Handle answer change. Okay, we still have an error. Let's see. Let's see now. Okay, name is WaterLily Survey. Okay, let's name it Neha. Failed to submit the survey, please try again. Let's also inspect this. Okay. Error submitting survey. Okay, what is this error? Let's see what this error is. Okay, something is wrong with the Axios. Do we have the API here? Let's see. In survey form, we have API using the same https.results.id. Yeah, that looks good. Indicates a problem with not with the real code based on previous code we looked at. Learning processing a submit endpoint. So I have fixed that. Let's see. So this error is fixed. What's our table name? Surveys. That looks good. Okay. What can be the problem here? It was returning true before. I'm not sure why it is not returning true anymore. Okay, let's try again. 45. Okay, we still have the it is survey form itself, it is not in the response. Having internal survey form error. Survey form, survey result. Let's move back to the previous version and see what will we need. Survey. Let's save this. Let's also go to the survey question and let's save this. Let's also go to the survey result and survey responses. Save this and survey responses. Let's see what's there now. Link. Let's see. Go here. Let's fill this. Spotify. Oh, okay. Let's look up this error. Below is the code for survey form. Let's paste the code here. And see. Okay. In your React component, you are sending the structure question ID. This is the issue what the server expects. Question ID 1, value answer text. Question ID, not question ID. Okay, let's see. Okay, so API is database is question ID. Now let's see the form. So our form has okay, question ID. Question ID. Okay, let's do that. Survey form, question ID, question ID. Let's see. So we have the question ID, submission data, question ID. Okay, let's see if it works. So we have the name 45 23. Oh my god, okay, that was a tiny error, but see here we can see our question ID as well. Yeah, so you can see a small underscore can cause this much problems. Okay, so I think based on our question we were able to have a survey form with question ID, title, description and submit button, and post submission we are allowing the users to view their responses, which we did here. And let's see the improvements here. So I think we already crossed 2.5 hours. So what we can do is we can have we can work on user authentication. Might take some time, so instead of that We can have a single question display format, and we can also have navigation between questions like next and previous, and we can have a progress indicator. This three sounds reasonable. We already added the form validation, which is required field. Okay, let's do this and see how much time we have left, and we can discuss after that. So okay, so instead of survey form, let's have a new file called enhanced survey form. So this is the advanced form. We don't want to mess with the existing form, so let's create a new form. So let's import react use state from react. Let's use navigate and axios. Okay, so it would be similar to survey form, but instead of this we will have a single question per form. So let's have a constant URL. Okay, so let's say constant enhance survey form, and okay, let's see. Okay, so we will have questions, set questions. Again, we will have answers, set answers. We will have loading, set loading. We can also have for error submitting. Let's also have one for current question, because we are showing one question per page. So let's say current question index, set current question index. Also let's have navigate to navigate. Okay, so again we have to fetch all the questions here. So we'll use axios to again fetch the questions. We'll set the questions to response.data, and if we have any error we can set it to this, and we'll fetch the questions. Let's close this here too. Okay, so we did that, and we will also have handle input change. So let's have constant let's constant handle input change. So every time we okay, so every time we answer a question we have to go to the next question. So in that time when we have a value, so what we can do is we can get the question ID, constant current question, so which is current question index dot id, question of current question index dot id. Then we will set the answers to current question to that value, and also after that we can also add the validation errors. So let's also add validation error. So constant validation error, set validation errors. Okay, so after this is done, let's say if we have any validation errors. So if we have any validation error in these questions, let's do this. Constant updated errors equals to this error, and delete updated error for this question, and then we can set validation errors to updated errors. So let's set it to the updated errors. Okay, so if we are having any validation error in this question, then we will write a function for that. But if we have any error in this question, then we can update uh, then we can updated errors equals to the validation errors, existing validation errors, and updated errors will update, and we can set it for the updated errors. Okay, this looks good. Okay, let's write a function for validation errors. So validate current question. So let's say validate current question. Okay, let's see. So current question equals to question of current question index and question ID. So let's say constant question ID equals to current question ID dot ID, and answer equals to answer of question ID dot ID. Or if we don't have any question, if we don't have any answer, let's say answer, then we can say answers. Okay. So if answer, okay, let's rewrite this. We can just say if it is empty, then we can set validation errors to current this field is required, otherwise we can return false. Otherwise, if question dot type equals to email and not validate email, and value is not equals to this, then we can say okay, validate email. Okay, that is for the email one. Let's also add one for the numbers. Okay, so if it is not number, if it is this. Okay, so we have added all the validation here. Okay, so we have added that. Let's handle next. So we will have two button, one for the next. So as mentioned here, we should have next two buttons between next and previous. So let's see. So if handle next, so if uh, if uh, if you are not able to validate the current question, then we can return. Otherwise, if current question dot index is less than, if we have, okay, let's see. So if current question index is less than, if we are in the bounds of the question, then we can set it to next question. Okay, if we are inside the bounds, then we can set it to the next question. Let's delete this. I don't think so we need all this. Okay, then we can have, similarly we can have, if current index is greater than 0, then we can set it to the previous index. Okay, and the next is the handle submit. Okay, so this is our main function. Let's see again. So we will have the same error here. So if we are not able to validate the current question, we can return. So let okay, so let's say we were were not able to validate the current question, so we'll return. Okay, prevent default. Okay, let's remove this. Okay, so unanswered questions equal to question dot filter. We'll see how many questions are unanswered. So if unanswered is not, then we can set the error to please answer all the questions, and after that let's set submitting to true and error to null after all this. Otherwise, if we were able to do that, so let's say we'll map question id value. So this is same as our previous one which we did in this one, so it is same as that. So we'll have answer value, constant response, we'll post it, and we'll navigate to the results, so it will stay the same. Error submitting survey, otherwise we can say finally. Okay, so we were done with this. We handle the we have closed handle submit. Okay, I think we have handled everything. We have the submit, handle previous, handle next, and we have the if value dot trim validate current question. Let's see what's wrong with this. Oh, we have the answer. It's not value, it's answer. Okay, it looks good. Okay, let's go to the is loading function. So if is loading, okay, let's see. So if it is loading, then we can have a flex animate spin, and we can just have all this. Okay, the next is if we don't have any questions, similarly like before. So if let's say questions at length equals to 0, then we can say this looks good. We can say no questions found for this survey. Oh, that sounds good. And the next is okay, so we need to show current question and the progress. Okay, so we have to show a progress bar and a question. So let's say constant current question equals to questions of, so we got the current question here, current question. Then we have also progress bar, so which is progress, which is equals to the current question index plus 1 divided by question sort length, so we'll get the percentage of the progress. Okay, so return. Okay, let's see how we can do this. Okay, so let's first do everything and then we'll see. So we have div, let's go back. We have the current question, then we have the progress bar, progress this. Something is wrong with this. Are we missing anything here? Okay, we have closed that. We have to close this, so we have closed that as well. Do we have is loading? We have just loading, let's say loading. Okay, okay, we have this, all this, and submitting. This is for this. Okay, this looks good. So I think we have solved all those problems. Okay, we have to return, and okay, okay, let's see here. So this looks bad here. So let's see, we have div class name equal to this, then we have text. We can say text excel, bold, text blue, survey, WaterLily survey. And if we have any error, we can just say error. Then for progress bar, so let's have margin bottom 8, then full background gray, rounded full, div class name background blue, edge 2.5, rounded full, transition all, let's say duration 300 millisecond, and let's say is in out, and style equal to width progress. We have closed the div, so we have closed all the divs. Okay, so we don't need the form. Okay, let's also close this div. Let's see if we have closed all the div. This div is closed, h1 is closed, div is closed. Okay, so we fixed that. So we were able to have the error, WaterLily survey title, we had the progress bar. Okay, so let's have the question now. So P class name equals to how do we keep it? Let's say text right, then text small, text gray, let's say margin top is 1 because we have progress bar, and we can say question of question length, paragraph, and okay, let's close this div here. Okay, so we have closed the div. We have closed the div here. We have error. We can have the error after the question if we have any error here. Okay, let's have the question title, and we have question title here, so which is text excel, let's say medium to text gray, and before description. Okay. Let's have a div here, class name mb4. So after all this, let's close the div. Okay, we have one more div. Okay, let's see. So if question type, so based on the input type we will have different input boxes. So if question type equals to text area, then we can have value on change equals to handle input change, class name equals to this, border. If we have error, then we can have this border, otherwise we can have this border, focus ring. Okay, then we can have rows 4, enter your answer here. If we have input equals to text, where is the text? Don't have the text here. Let's say parent input type equals to text area, then we could do this. Otherwise input equals to text, then we can have this. If input equals to text, then we have this. Placeholder, enter your answer here, then we have this. Let's see. Otherwise let's have this. Div current area type is equals to current question type is equals to text area, then this. Otherwise we can do this, input text area, then we can do this. Otherwise we can have text. Otherwise we can have text. Current question type was number, email, and let's see, we can do this. Let's remove this. And instead of this, let's have current input type equals to text, number, email, and we can have all that. We can also have validation error, so if we have any error we can show after this question. And okay, let's see the div. Okay, so after all these questions we want two buttons, one for previous, one for next. So let's have specify between top 4 and okay, so we have two buttons here. On click is handle previous, disabled. If we have 0th question, we don't need that button. And class name is background gray, previous button. And if current question is less than that button, then we can show the handle next button. Otherwise we can just show the submit button, okay, which sounds good. So we close this div. Let's close all the divs. I think that's all the div we have. Let's see. So this is for this is for this div, okay, and this is for this div, okay, and div. So we have closed that. We have 1 2 3, okay, I don't think so we have more divs. Then okay, export default enhanced survey form. Okay, this looks good. So the only difference is in index app.js, instead of survey form, let's import the enhanced survey form. Okay, let's import the enhanced survey form and let's set it as the default. Survey form is used but never used. Okay, let's comment this, save. Let's see. Okay, let's see the home page. Oh, awesome. So let's enter. We can't use the previous because this is disabled for now, because this is the first question. Okay, when we say next, this is saying the question is required, so let's say Neha. Then let's refresh again. Let's say Neha. Something is wrong with this. Okay, let's look at from the top. So we have the questions, answers, loading, error, submitting, current question index, validation errors, use navigate. Okay, that sounds good. Then we have fetch. We will try the response. We are fetching the questions. We have set error if we have any. Okay, that sounds good. Then the next is input, handle input change. Okay, this is the one where I guess we are having the error. So current question equals to questions of current question index dot id. Then we'll set the answers. So we are setting update the answer. So we have all the answers and current question is value whatever we passed. If validation errors of the question id, current question, so constant updated errors. So we have the updating the error equals to all the previous errors, and we will delete update error of current question, and we'll set validation errors to the updated errors. Is it that? Let's see. Okay, let's see again. Okay, no, it is not. So current question equals to question of current question index, then question id equals to current question and dot id, then answers is equals to answers of question id. Oh, we already have the id here, question id, otherwise this. Let's see if this solves the problem. Neha. Okay, yeah, that solved it. So 34, let's just say next, but we can't, so let's do this. So again it is giving the validation error, please enter a valid Gmail ID, so let's say gmail.com. Next. Oh, we missed it for number. Okay, let's fix that. So enhance survey form. Okay, so we have text, number, we have number. What is that? Phone number, right? So I think it's number. Let's see in the database. In it, phone number is number. Okay. Type equals to number. Let's see previous. Next. Where is the text box? So if current question type equals to text area, then we are doing this. If current question type equals to text, then we are doing this. This looks good. Input type equals to number. This. I think we just did number before. How old are you? So this is a number. Let's see the questions. Phone number. This is weird. Let's save it. Let's say Neha. How old are you? 34. Enter your email address, gmail.com. Phone number. Okay. What's wrong with this? So we have all the questions. Let's see. Inspect. Let's see what's wrong here. Let's save it and see again. Okay. Let's say Neha. How old are you? 45. Enter your email address, neha@gmail.com. Oh, please enter a phone number. We can say 465. Then how satisfied, or we can say very. Then we can provide any feedback. We have maximum 4 lines. Okay, so our previous and next button is working. Let's see what's wrong with the survey console. Okay, we have again handle submit error. Let's see. Enhance survey questions. Okay, Okay, again we have question ID. Let's save it and let's try again. I think that should fix it. Neha, how old are you? 34. Email address nokaneha@gmail.com. Again our phone number, if we add then how satisfied are you with the service? Let's add. Okay, yeah, so we can see all the survey results in one page. So yeah, this looks good. So let's see. So I guess I'm already on the 3 hour mark. So I was able to get the survey form with the front end, title, description, input field, submit button, and post submission reviews. And I was also able to have the backend APIs. So after that, I was able to work on the single question display format. I also had navigation between the questions, which is the next and previous, and I also had the progress indicator at the top. Then again, I also had some form validation, required fields, and input constraints. I was not able to do it for all kind of inputs, but I think I was able to do it for most of them. So this is all. Implementing user authentication will take an hour or more. So let's leave it for future. And enhance survey UX, responsive design. So if I had much more time, I could have done it for other other all kinds of devices like mobile tablets. So if I would have extra time, I would add form validation to ensure that user provide valid kind of inputs, like for email, for name they are not giving something like location or something else. Or so this will improve the app's usability and prevent invalid data from being submitted. And progress indicator, I have also already implemented that, so that is there. One thing which I can add is the percentage here next to the progress indicator. It should help how far along they are. Again, I will, if I had more time, I would make it more responsive. I'll make sure that the app is mobile friendly by testing it on different sizes and using more of Tailwind responsive utilities. I think to summarize, I have built a survey application and it allows user to submit the responses and review them after submission. And if I had some more time, I could have added user authentication. I could have added some animation to make it more easy, and also for would have implemented more robust error handling. And I think I would consider deploying the app to some cloud services like AWS or Heroku for better accessibility. I think that's all from my end. And yeah, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to work on this project. I really enjoyed working on it. Thank you.